Hi, everybody, and welcome to the very last episode of this attendance bias mini-series in which we've previewed each venue Phish will play during their upcoming summer 2025 tour. We just took a look at a new venue to the Phish world, Forest Hill Stadium, and today we turn our attention to an old favorite, a venue that has been a part of the Phish conversation longer than some fans have been alive, literally. Today I am joined by family. My sister-in-law, Liz Ratto, who coincidentally is not only a Phish fan who has been to SPAC several times, but is also a resident of Saratoga Springs. When planning out this series, I was a little nervous about this episode because Phish has been playing SPAC for so long, who knows what new information we could provide, but the answer is quite a bit. Liz gives some great pro tips for not only attending the shows, but things to do around Saratoga while you're in town for these 3 nights that close the tour, July 25th, 26th, and 27th. Phish has a long history at SPAC, but an even longer history in Saratoga itself. But let's hear from the locals. Join me and Liz to hear about how to make the best of Phish's final run of the tour, summer 2025, at Saratoga Performing Arts Center. Liz, welcome to Attendance Bias. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure to have you here today as a special guest, not only as a family member, but also as a resident of Saratoga Springs. Saratoga or Saratoga Springs?
I don't know. I think I say Saratoga, but I don't know how approved that is by the true locals.
Well, what's the difference? Because the venue mailing address is in Saratoga Springs.
Yeah, I think it's just people love to shorten multi-word cities and things like that. I'm from San Francisco and I hate when people say like SF or God forbid Frisco. So
Ugh.
I'm gonna imagine perhaps the Saratoga Spring natives like you to say Saratoga Springs. So I'll try to stick with that.
Right, so it sounds a little more dignified.
Exactly.
Well, we've made it. We've gone over 9 venues already. Some of them are brand new to Phish for this summer tour. Some of them have a small or short Phish history. SPAC is, I haven't done the numbers, but I believe the most experienced Phish venue for this summer tour in that they've played the most number of shows before this summer. My research says that they've played 24 shows at SPAC dating all the way back to 1992. And this summer, they'll be at the venue July 25th, 26th, and 27th. So we're going to go deep into that history and ask you, as both a Phish fan and a resident, what would you recommend to people coming into town, whether it's their first time or their 25th time seeing the band?
Totally. I think Saratoga Springs, particularly in summertime, is just a wonderful place to visit. I admittedly cannot speak to the horse races, which are a huge draw and will be going on kind of over the summer season. But I think, when you first look at Saratoga Springs, it's a suburb, it's a college town, kind of easy to lump it in with a lot of similar towns. But I think what makes Saratoga Springs really remarkable is just that, like, it is so beautiful. There is so much green space, and the town and surrounding areas really prioritize the preservation of that beauty. So whether it's the arts and the town's kind of deep history and work there, or the natural spaces, there's tons of state parks. We're so close to the Adirondacks. It's just a remarkable place. And I would say one thing that I always recommend that people do here is visit the Roosevelt Baths and Spa if you can. So Saratoga Springs, obviously named for the natural springs here. FDR and his contemporaries thought that these had healing properties. And so when you're actually on the grounds where SPAC is located, you'll see the reflecting pools. It's a lot of the original grounds that were kind of created for the state park at that time. And you can go and partake in the original Roosevelt baths, where you get kind of a private bath for 45 minutes using the natural Saratoga spring water. And it's absolutely amazing. And you will leave feeling better than you ever have before. So highly recommend.
Well, that's quite an endorsement. In addition to that, I want the listeners to know who we're listening to, so what's your history with Saratoga in relationship to the town?
Yeah, so prior to about 14 months ago, it was really a fish tour relationship. I would pop in, hopefully once a year or so for a weekend and enjoy the town. Since early 2024, my husband and I actually relocated here. So he lives here full time, running his small business. I go between Saratoga Springs and New York City. So yeah, it's been great to kind of figure out how to experience the town and all the things it has to offer as a resident now.
So, looking in at the venue, the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, although I don't think anyone ever in the history of the world refers to it that way, I don't know how much about SPAC that you and I can add to what Phish fans already know because it goes all the way back dating to 1992 in the Phish world, but we'll give it a try. SPAC is located, as you mentioned, on the grounds of the Saratoga State Park, which I think is the best thing the venue has going for it. Literally, its location. Other than maybe Bethel Woods, it's probably the most naturally beautiful area to see a show, probably in New York State. I haven't been here for a while. I haven't been to SPAC since 2004. We'll get into that a little bit later. But what I do remember from it is where you park kind of determines your entire afternoon leading up to going into the show. Am I right in my memory that you park literally in the state park grounds? It's almost like all green grass as you approach the entrance.
Exactly. And I think that this is a key note, especially for any SPAC new timers, first timers. In my old age, I have been known to avail myself of premium parking. I would strongly recommend against doing that at SPAC, at least for Phish or any other bands where you want to experience a lot and really spend the day. If you're in premium parking, you're going to be on an asphalt lot close to kind of a busy road. If you head into the park closer to the venue, you're going to be among the trees, in the grass. It is absolutely idyllic, right out of a collegiate brochure. So I would say for sure, head in early, bring some games, bring a picnic, bring your friends, and just totally enjoy the grounds. Because you're right, you'll be in different pockets of the grounds, but there's just an amazing amount to explore if you want to kind of spend the day just enjoying it.
And for people who don't live nearby, whether in New York State or Massachusetts, wherever it may be, I was surprised to find out SPAC is the official summer home of the New York City Ballet. And they have a week of performances there in July. It's like a sanctioned thing. It's like their summer home. And the whole venue opened in 1966. It was originally designed as a theater exclusively for classical music. And when I read that, it kind of clicked in me, which kind of makes sense. It kind of explains the lawn pavilion seating arrangement because you could enjoy classical music a little bit better sitting on that lawn in the little chairs with your entire view being blocked by the back of the pavilion.
Yeah, it's set up great for just an amazing number of purposes. And they've actually done a lot of work on the venue over the last few years, I think, to make it even more user friendly. Used to be a lot of traffic up above the lawn, a lot of sort of claustrophobic gathering around concessions. They've now moved all of that to kind of one flank of the venue. And so you've got a lot of room to move around, and it sounds really, really good from any number of places.
That's good to know because when we talk about the Phish history there in a little bit, I'll explain why I haven't been to the venue in 21 years. I had, that's a good word for it, quite of a claustrophobic experience my last time there. But going back to the history of the venue, so it was supposed to be only classical music. Then it seemed that ticket sales for classical music in the summer, mostly from New York City residents, didn't cover the costs of putting the shows on. So the organizers decided to try and put on maybe one or two pop shows per season. So moving forward a year, in 1967, the first pop star is how it's listed on the venue website to play its back was Harry Belafonte in 1967, and then the Doors in 1968. And the ticket sales were so good for each one of those shows that the floodgates opened and SPAC just became a stop on a summer tour circuit for most popular touring acts. Do you go to SPAC regularly other than Phish, or have you?
I've tried. I would like to do more. You mentioned the New York City Ballet doing their summer season here, which is absolutely wonderful. It is so remarkable to watch those dancers, when you're in the city or anytime, to watch them in the July heat outside do these elaborate programs. It is just such a treat. They're such incredible athletes and artists. And so I think whether you're going to the ballet, you're going to come to see Dave or Tedeschi Trucks or of course, Phish. I think there's really something for everyone at SPAC, especially during the summer.
And it makes sense that it's become, it was kind of maybe its destiny to become one of those summer tour circuit stops because number one, its size, right? So the official capacity for SPAC is 25,103 specifically. It's 5,103 seats in the pavilion or covered area. And then they allow for 20,000 on the lawn. And in looking up the background of the venue, I found out that the largest recorded crowd for a show at SPAC was 40,231. And that was for none other than the Grateful Dead on June 18th, 1983. So this was before they were even like touch of gray pop culture icons. They were still kind of an underground or cult band. That was so much for the staff to work on. And you mentioned that it could be a little claustrophobic there, even though they played one of the best versions of Morning Dew they've ever played at that show. After that show in 1983, the organizers at SPAC decided to cut the lawn capacity literally by 20,000.
I can understand that is a humongous show.
It's enormous. And I would even suggest that there are shows that I've been to there where they kind of let a few more people in than they should.
I think that's possible. I hike around the venue a lot in some of the grounds, and I'm always kind of peeking at the fences and things like that. I'm not suggesting anyone explore doing this, but I would say if you wanted to hop the fence at SPAC, especially as a Dead fan in the '80s, that was probably very possible.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then you could tell four more of your friends to come with you.
For sure.
And as far as location goes, we talked about how beautiful it is aesthetically. It's also very convenient to get to. So the venue is approximately about 3 hours straight north of New York City. It's about a half hour north of Albany. And it makes sense that Phish, and as you mentioned, Dave Matthews Band, who have played over 40 shows at SPAC, would make it kind of a quasi-annual summer tour stop since it's a quick getaway from New York City. And when you get there, it feels like you're super far away, but it's basically a day trip. So it's not a big deal to go there. And depending on how you are after the show, come back. So I've only been to Saratoga a few times, maybe once or twice. Liz, where do you think, like, where do people stay? Is it all camping? Are there hotels in the town? I mean, I know it's a really small town. So how does this town, this small town based on a state park, deal with enormous crowds like this?
Yeah, I think the good news is that because of the horse racing, there's also a casino, there's a small airport. There are actually a number of hotels in the area. So you'll see fans for sure at all of the hotels that are directly surrounding the venue, of which there are actually many. And even as you start to get more into kind of the Saratoga Springs city center down that Broadway artery, there are more hotels, plenty of places to stay. So if you're in Saratoga Springs proper, I think you're probably maybe paying a bit of a premium. But, when my sister and I first started coming to SPAC, we would stay a little bit further north on the thruway in South Glens Falls or Queensbury. So you'll find fans up that way as well.
When did you first start going to see Phish at SPAC?
I think my first run would have been summer of 2013, and I've probably seen half the shows that Phish has played at SPAC that you mentioned.
Any tips and tricks other than avoiding premium parking that you would give first timers?
I think that's the main one. Like I said, the park itself is so beautiful. Get there early, enjoy yourself, avail yourself of all of its amenities, and just have a great time.
And just to give you a crystal ball for a second, these three shows are the end of the tour. There's no Dick's Run this year. So if you don't make it to Saratoga, you're not seeing the tour culmination. If you had to predict, just based on your history there and now that you're part of the community in a way, what do you think ticket sales will be like?
Oh, I think ticket sales will be really strong. Like you said, I think this is one of the certainly essential summer Phish venues, but just one of the essential summer East Coast venues, full stop. So I think it really draws folks from all over the Northeast, New England, probably parts of the Eastern Seaboard as well. So I think ticket sales will be great. The PAV will for sure sell out, but I think also just with, end of tour excitement or fatigue, you'll see tickets for the PAV or the lawn kind of pop up on Cash or Trade too.
Speaking of which, what is your position on SPAC lawns? Because it's kind of become a punchline now, when it comes to the tickets by mail, I still call it that, but the Phish Lotto, basically, that it's a big divisive issue whether or not to put in for SPAC. Because you could literally win the lotto and get pavilion seats, which is like a golden ticket from Willy Wonka, or you could end up with lawns for 3 nights. And people have very different opinions about what it's like to experience a Phish show from the lawn at SPAC. What is that like for you? What's your position on the SPAC lawn?
Overall, I'm pro SPAC lawn. I had kind of gotten away from lawns in general for a bit. Just, once you know what you're missing in the path, it's kind of hard to go back. But I would say I really love the lawn at SPAC. It sounds really good. You can get down quite low and really see the band really, really well. They've done a good job with screens. And like I said, the fact that they kind of cleared out that area above the lawn, I think that helps like folks with younger kids move a little bit further up. It just gives everybody a little bit more space. You're not kind of fighting the crowds who are trying to get out for more concessions. So I am pro SPAC lawn, but I did not put into the lottery for SPAC for just that reason. I sort of said, all right, I think I'm unlucky to get PAV tickets, so let me just find them myself.
Well, it's kind of developed that reputation because of the size of the venue and the size of the lawn that unless you are pavilion or bust, you could kind of make SPAC almost like an optional
Exactly.
choice, where it's like at the end, well, yeah, if nothing's going on that weekend, you could probably find lawns for $20 is, I think, the mentality.
That's exactly right. And, I had a similar experience last summer with Great Woods. I think if you're in the Northeast and you can drive to these venues easily, you can completely make a game time decision. And I don't think you'll have any issues finding lawn tickets.
So to delve a little bit into Phish's history, more specifically at SPAC, this summer is a really interesting mix I found as I've recorded this series of newer venues. And I don't mean newer constructed venues necessarily, but newer venues to fans in the band with a good mix of almost venues you take for granted that Phish will stop at over the course of the summer. So SPAC, I always group in with The Man, which they're playing, Great Woods, which they're not, Jones Beach, which they're not, or Meriwether Post, which I don't think they are either. But it's still in that mix, this kind of shed pavilion that people in the Northeast, it's no coincidence, take for granted as one of the large outdoor summer venues that the band has been playing basically since forever. More specifically, though, the band debuted at SPAC on July 27th, 1992, when they opened for Santana. They liked it so much that they came back as headliners not too long after, their first show being July 10th, 1994. this was when they were making the jump from theaters to large venues, but they were not nearly as popular enough to really sell it out. But they kept returning. They came back in 1995 before taking a 9-year break from the venue. It should be noted, by the way, and I'm curious to what you think of this, ignoring SPAC for a second, but staying in Saratoga, it should be noted that the band played the town twice before making it even to SPAC. So it's a college town, right? Which colleges are nearby? Because you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, Skidmore is the main one that's right in Saratoga Springs.
All right, so there's Skidmore, and it's only about a half hour or 40 minutes from Albany, right? Which is a larger city
Yep.
and a larger college.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also closer to Burlington, distance-wise, than it is to New York City.
Correct.
So when you talk about Phish in their early stages, especially in the late 80s and early 90s, people who got in on the ground floor and wanted to follow them all around from Burlington to Saratoga is not that long of a drive. It's probably what, like 2 hours?
2.5. Yep.
2.5,
Really
okay.
easy.
So their first gig in Saratoga was on March 3rd, 1990 at a small Deadhead bar. And I don't know if it's still around. You could tell me, called Aiko's, Aiko apostrophe S, as in Aiko Ane.
I am a poor historian, but I am guessing it may not be here.
Right. But this bar, Aiko's, I did a little bit of research into it. So it was a Deadhead bar that also would play host in these times to Widespread Panic, the Ominous Sea Pods, which was a very popular for its time kind of neo-hippie jam band movement, the Spin Doctors, and probably Dave Matthews, any number of early 90s kind of neo jam band wave. But to your point, they next played at Skidmore College in the gym on October 5th, 1990, before returning in 1992 for their Santana opening spot. Other than Phish, the band members have played on stage in various configurations, like dozens of times. And I don't know if you remember this because I don't think you were into Phish yet, but this includes Trey's first public performance after his arrest and drug court in the mid 2000s. He appeared with Dave Matthews Band on August 14th, 2007, for a really heartfelt and also really well played version of Lie on Our Graves that I remember. It kind of tickled all the Phish fan base's fancy, where we're like, oh, wait, he's coming back. He's playing well. And it's at SPAC. Oh, and people started like checking their calendars and their headlines every day.
Reason to hope. Yes.
Yes, and it gave and good reason to hope because it was only like a month or two later, 2 months later, that it was announced that Phish would be coming. No, a year and 2 months later that Phish would be coming back at Hampton. So I haven't been back to SPAC since June of 2004. Have you heard anything? Are you aware of those shows at all?
I cannot say I'm aware of the SPAC show specifically, but of course that year was not one many of us look on fondly.
Right. It was a mostly god awful summer. You're absolutely right. And those two shows, they played Father's Day weekend. It was the 19th and 20th of June. I was there for both of them, and it was so overcrowded. I can't get my mind off that word that you used earlier about claustrophobic. At the time, just to give any listeners a sense of what it was like to be there, it was definitely oversold. Very hot, as it tends to be when they play it back in June or July in the Northeast, and humid. And I'm a diabetic. So at the time, I was still injecting myself with insulin. I didn't have an insulin pump, right? So it's technically it's a medical procedure, but it's not that different from, I don't know, changing a baby's diaper or breast milk pumping, something like that, where it's not like a major procedure, but you need a little space and maybe even a little privacy to get it done. And I couldn't find any space. All I needed was like 2 feet to the left and 2 feet to the right to get this done. And I couldn't find one place where I could stand and have that space. And I saw this one wide open area and I started walking to it. And security put his hand on my chest because you can't go there. I'm like, what? I need to. And I tried explaining. He goes, no, that's the women's bathroom. And it all made sense to me. Of course, the women's bathroom is wide open. It's a Phish
Totally
show.
vacant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Early
Well,
2000s Phish
yeah.
show.
It made such an impression on me that even though I'm somewhat close to SPAC, I have no interest in returning. But you're making a good point for me. You're making a compelling argument with all the renovations and changes that they've made. Give me more of an argument. Try to convince me. What are some of your favorite Phish at SPAC memories?
I am sorry that happened. That is such a bummer.
It was a different
And
time, also.
it is a different time for sure, but I know that venue and I know moments in the past where it has felt crowded and you have to, be in a certain headspace for that. And I think they have done such a good job of remodeling and helping the flow of traffic. And it just feels like a much more inclusive, much friendlier space at this point. I will say the staff is also amazing. The last several years I've been going, I find people to be so friendly, so helpful. They've laid things out in a really nice way with all of the changes. And I think generally the people there, whether it's park staff or venue staff, are just proud of the venue. They're proud of the park. They're excited to welcome people. So I would say come, give it another shot. And it's just a beautiful place to see a show. It sounds great. And Phish often just gives us a real treat there.
What are some of the times they've given you a real treat? Do you have any memories that like Phish at SPAC moments that stick around in your brain, whether it's personal
Yeah,
or musically?
there's a few. I would say musically, I would tell people not to sleep on the 2019 run. Actually, it was really just like tight 2 nights, but they played Tweezer Reprise both nights. I think night two opened with Fluff Head, if that gives you a sense of the tone they were setting. And it was just so fun, so joyful, and was a great lawn experience. So, yeah, shout out to the SPAC lawn. I think beyond that, I mean, I can't remember if the whole run in 2014 was going to be rainy or if I had just done this because I was seeing a lot of summer tour that year and wanted to be prepared. But I actually got a full on rain outfit, like Gordon's fisherman style. And I debuted it at SPAC with just like a bathing suit and some wellies. And it was 10 out of 10, not just in terms of staying dry and enjoying the show, but it was such a hit on the lawn. People were so excited. I haven't done it since, and I haven't seen anyone else do it. But highly recommend, like, just go for the whole rain slicker thing if you need to, and it's going to be amazing.
So as we mentioned at the top of this conversation, SPAC is it's a familiar venue to pretty much anyone who's seen Phish, at least, I don't know, in the last 25 or 30 years. Do you have any specific restaurants, regional food, drink, places that maybe people who have been coming to SPAC for 20 years still haven't found out about, or new places that you might want to plug or recommend?
Oh, I hope so. Well, one great piece of news is that we now have a treehouse brewery directly across from the park. So I think that, I mean, that just opened in March, brand spanking new, enormous. I think that's going to be super popular with the fans. If you go a little bit further into town, I think a lot of fan favorites, Druthers Brewing. My favorite breweries are just a little bit out of town in Schuylerville, which is also a cool place to check out. That's kind of where the original Saratoga was, the kind of American Revolution battlefield, stuff like that. So that's a really cool historical little town to check out. And they have a couple of breweries, Bound by Fate and Fertile Turtle, that I think are awesome. Beyond breweries, my sister actually, when she recorded with you about 10/29/14, which was ironically a show at the Bill Graham Civic in San Francisco and not SPAC, but somehow she managed to work in a recommendation for our favorite Italian market and subplace, Cardona's. So I will +1 Cardona's hard. Go get yourself a sandwich and take it to SPAC and just enjoy your time on the lawn, or rather the lot. Two others, I would just say the Triangle Diner is an absolute just Saratoga landmark as far as I'm concerned. It will really set you right for breakfast, maybe a late breakfast, awesome hash browns, just classic diner experience. And then I would also plug one that hits a little closer to home. So my husband, who happens to be named Wilson for the fans,
I'm sure
opened
he's reminded of it every time he introduces himself to anybody at a show.
every time. They're always like, sorry, what? Double
Yeah.
take. Of course, yeah. So he is the baker and owner of Bakery Suzanne here in Saratoga Springs. So if you're like me and you're often the one up earlier than all your friends on tour, be the hero, go to Bakery Suzanne, grab a box of pastries, grab a baguette for the lot, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Unless you're a vegan. There's a lot of butter. But yeah, a lot of great things to check out in the area.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for taking some time to go over the history of Saratoga Springs, or at least the Performing Arts Center, for telling us a lot about the town, certainly, and a bit about your experience with Phish at SPAC. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you on tour.
Absolutely. See you soon. Thanks, Brian.
And that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Liz Ratto for joining me today, Phish.in for the multiple recordings used in today's episode, Phish.net for all the deep info I had to find for Saratoga and about Saratoga Springs, and the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do to help contribute to children's music education. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, you can follow the podcast on social media, mostly on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter, and Facebook. And you can also visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendance bias and donate anything you can to keep the lights on here at production. Thank you again so much for listening to this entire series. I hope you have a great summer 2025, and we'll get back to regular Attendance Bias episodes after the tour.